It is 4 p.m. We bring developing news and the stories behind the headlines. This is Story on the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Wednesday, April 8th. Oil prices dropped below $100 per barrel after the U.S. and Iran agreed to a two-week ceasefire and the temporary reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. crude prices fell 14.3% to $96.8 a barrel, and Brent dropped by 13.3% to $94.7. Earlier, President Trump announced a two-week truce with Iran and suspended planned bombing operations, saying that the period will allow a finalization of a long-term peace agreement. The DSWD the DSWD has begun distributing the 5,000 peso cash assistance to over 328,000 tricycle drivers outside of Metro Manila. The cash aid is funded through the department's assistance to individuals in crisis situations, or the AICS program. Earlier, the DSWD said around 98,000 tricycle drivers in the National Capital Region have already received their ayuda. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso says that there will be no immediate extension of the Libreng Sakay program starting tomorrow, April 9. The city government will first assess the impact of the program to determine the next steps and ensure more efficient implementation. The 5-day free ride initiative was held on March 30, 31, April 6, 7, and April 8. Filipinos applying for new passports may face delays of up to 15 working days due to interrupted electronic passport printing. This is another effect of the protracted Gulf War. The delays affect applications from late March and will continue until further notice. The DFA says it is working with its service provider to restore normal operations as soon as possible. The Manila Regional Trial Court has allowed detainee Ramil Madriaga to attend the House Committee on Justice hearing on the impeachment of VP Sara Duterte on April 14. Madriaga, Duterte's alleged bagman, will be escorted by jail personnel to the Batasang Pambansa complex in Quezon City for the probable cause proceedings. He previously claimed that drug dealers and pogos funded Duterte's 2022 campaign, allegations that were denied by the Vice President. And joining us today in the studio, of course, we have Storycon's resident political heckler, Tito Raul Yemas.
Good afternoon, Ed. We missed you yesterday.
Yesterday? Nandito ako. Ay! Sorry.
Kalimutan mo na? Sa safe house kasi, wala ka sa Storycon.
Yeah.
Oh, parang nag-enjoy ng todo si Reg. Na kaming dalawa lang.
Ikaw lang,
Oo,
ikaw
dalawa
lang
lang.
still.
Oo.
She's not getting it in stereo, kumbaga.
Oo.
Mono lang, mono.
May sumulpot.
May umaalma. And of course, on Zoom.
Parang nakita ko sa kanyang aura na tuwan-tuwa siya na kaming dalawa lang ka.
Okay, on Zoom, we have Storycon's host, Regina Lay.
I vehemently deny that.
Oh, di ba? Ayun. Fake news
Vehemently.
kayo.
Parang si Taco magsalita. Parang si Trump Oh.
I will bomb you back to the Stone Ages if you're not careful.
Diba?
You will end your
I will
civilization.
destroy.
Yeah, I'm gonna
civilization.
bomb you back to the Stone Ages.
Akala ko nandun pa ako. Di pa ako umalis.
Well, that's also true. Fair point.
Oo, you forget he's a barbarian.
You cannot destroy my civilization because that will only mean that I'm civilized.
That already presumes that he's civilized. Teka,
Buti naman may kahit konting self-awareness, no?
Circumspection ang tawag doon.
That's true. I appreciate the circumspection.
so simulang-simula pa lang eh.
Chung, chung, chung na.
Akala ko ba ceasefire?
Chung, chung.
Buti pa si Iran tsaka si Trump eh. May ceasefire eh.
Walang ceasefire dito.
Pero natatawa ko doon. Sabi ni Trump, good daw yung proposal ng Iran. Parang hindi niya nabasa.
Binasa kaya
Parang
niya?
hindi niya nabasa.
Yung 10-point proposal?
Nung binabasa ko, tawa ko ng tawa.
Parang it's the other extreme of the... Kung yung isa, end civilization, yung 10-point proposal, the other extreme eh. Tapos, it's a good starting point.
Tawa ko ng tawa lang sinabi niya yun.
So, did we miss out
Kaya
on something?
talaga, can you just take it for what it is?
Yeah,
At
yeah,
least
ito
we
na
have
naman.
ceasefire. At
Ito-
least Brent is below $100 a barrel now.
So-
And at least there's light at the end of the
Ayan.
tunnel.
May
So-
half full na.
So, bababa rito yung presyo ng langis. Di ba gagal?
Hindi pa, but
Hindi ka-
we're gonna get there.
Ganyan.
May,
Feathers.
may kwan pa yun, may music pa yun. Pag gumagano-gano.
Para sa Forrest Gump.
Ano na naman si Cup Half Full.
Well, for those who are not aware, yun nga, nagkasundo yung dalawang panig through Pakistan for a 2-week ceasefire, negotiations to begin on Friday. On Friday. And the initial statements coming from, of course, Trump is mukha raw workable yung 10-point proposal ng Iran, which among other things include dominion over the Strait of Hormuz, removal of all
All
US,
US
forces
bases in the region.
bases in the region.
Tapos,
Yung nuclear nila, nuclear
walang mention.
Oo.
No? Tapos yung remuneration do sa destruction na ginawa sa Iran, no? et cetera. Tapos yung unfreezing ng
assets,
kanilang...
and sanctions,
yes.
lifting of sanctions.
so,
So, yung cup half full natin, parang iba ang laman ng tasa eh.
hindi. Yung cup half full ni Reg, cup half foolish.
Ayun na,
Ikaw ang foolish.
Yan,
Cup
nagsimula
half
na.
foolish.
Okay.
Sarap i-provoke eh.
Yun nga, I mean, ikaw talaga, Ed, you're asking for details when that's what they're gonna hash out over the weekend in Pakistan, di ba?
Wow.
Oo nga
The
naman.
point is,
Oo nga naman.
Wow. The devil is in the details.
the point is, ceasefire na tayo for now. Both sides are declaring victory. It doesn't matter who's right, but the point is, at least they're coming to the table.
Except,
Hindi ba?
except Israel.
Oh, except Israel.
Well, except Israel.
The elephant-
No.
The elephant in the room.
Israel acknowledged that they're on ceasefire, but hindi daw nila sinama yung Lebanon in the agreement. So I don't know where the confusion is over there. They didn't agree to stop fighting with Lebanon daw.
Yung Yemen lang ang sinama. Yemen tsaka Iraq.
So, yun.
So-
Yun. Half full nga. Half full.
Yeah.
Di ba halata na I'm so optimistic? Oh, ayan, no?
Although, I don't know if you guys,
I'm oozing with optimism, di ba?
I don't know if you guys listened to the House hearing kanina on the fuel crisis, wherein Energy Secretary Sharon Garin was, questioned once again on prices, and tinanong siya if it might come to a point na umabot ng 200 pesos per liter yung diesel, and also bakit nga mabagal bumaba. So I think in short her answer was that because nag-iba na structurally yung global market, it's gonna take some time before we see prices come down again. So parang tama nga yung sinasabi ng ibang experts that we've spoken to, which is we're not gonna see 60 pesos a liter in the near future again. Yeah, even with the ceasefire, even if this war ends next week, hindi na babalik doon in the near future.
Even if they hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Oo.
Yeah.
O, pustahan, Reg, yung cup half full mo. Tataas pa rin yung presyo ng langis next week.
Depends what comes out of the negotiations.
In spite of the ceasefire. The negotiations will happen in 2 weeks at hindi mo sigurado kung anong resulta nun. No? So, sinasabi ko next week, tataas pa rin. No? May nakausap nga ako isang Taipan, hindi ko lang sabihin kung sino siya. Natawa siya dun sa cup half full mo, yung negotiations ng DFA para sa ating mga flagship. No?
Bakit?
Sa mga nadadaan sa Hormuz. Natawa siya, sabi niya, what tankers are they talking about?
I have news with that. I have just regard to that. I called up Marina kahapon. I got the number, then I called them up. And I talked to the spokesman. I got details. Okay. Number one, there are only 16 Philippine flagged tankers worldwide. 16 Philippine flagged tankers worldwide. Of those 16, hindi 5, 2 are in the danger zone, the Persian Gulf area, Strait of Hormuz area. Only 2 of the 16 are there. The others, the other 14, are spread all over the world. So that's one. Number 2, even if they're Philippine-flagged oil tankers, it does not mean that they service Philippine needs. In all likelihood daw, and most of the time, they don't even dock in the Philippines. Somebody else hires them. And for example, of the 2 tankers, of the 2 Philippine-flagged oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz area or the Persian Gulf area, one of them is going to deliver oil to India.
Right.
So it doesn't mean because they're Philippine flagged that we use them for our needs, because these are private, of course, these are private ships, and that they're hired or they're leased to other.
Pero bibigay ko na kay Reg. Para lang magkaroon siya ng cup half full. Baka naman sabihin, puro half empty.
Funny enough, I was at a closed door lunch kanina. I can't tell you guys who, pero ang narinig ko din is that there's some bureaucratic delays as far as that agreement is concerned, meaning
You mean?
the shipping companies still have to submit to the DFA a list of their paper requirements, paper documents, and so on and so forth. Kasi may hinihing listahan yung DFA, after which the DFA submits this to Iran, after which Iran looks at the list and says, okay, these are the ones that we can make exceptions for. So it has not kicked into place kasi nga they're still going through the bureaucracy of it all.
So ang assumption, Reg, meron tayong ship.
At least the ones that are Philippine flagged or the ones carrying Filipino seafarers. So yun yata yung there's some leeway
Almost.
as far as that is concerned.
30% of all the tankers in the world
Are manned by
carry
Filipinos.
Filipino
Yeah.
seafarers.
Kaya nga, so hindi siya blanket agreement to let vessels safe passage, right? They
Yeah.
still have to look at the list.
Okay.
And then they will tell us these are the ones that we will allow.
Okay. Bok, teka, let's bring in our first guest for today kasi he's already waiting in the sidelines. We have with us former Energy Secretary and now late Governor Jericho Petilla. Sir, magandang hapon po and thank you for joining us.
Magandang hapon sa lahat, mga Regina, Ed, and Ronald. Long time no see.
Magandang hapon, Governor. Long time no see.
Nagkasama ata kayo sa ano?
Oo, si Ronald kasi sumisipot lang to pag may gulo eh.
Ay,
Oo. Kaya nga.
araw-araw ba may gulo dito sa
Hindi ko sigurado kung positive yun o negative. No?
What do you think, Ronald? Do you think it could be positive?
Cup half full, half empty.
But sir, let me start off with this. Medyo maraming na-depress dun sa balitang lumabas quoting you saying, and also now even Secretary Garin is saying na whatever happens in the Middle East dun sa Iran-US conflict, we're not going to see the normalization of oil prices anytime soon. Not in so many months, maybe not even within the year. I don't know. Marami na depressed doon kasi ang daming umaasa na especially now may ceasefire, baka naman may konting
Konting dagdag lang.
konting
Kwan kasi, sa pagkakakilala ko kay Governor Secretary Jericho Petilla, he calls a spade a spade. So hindi naman siya propagandist katulad natin.
ba't isama mo kami?
Uy, hindi kami kasama dyan.
Isama mo kami. Sir, kayo po.
Basically, if I can lie, pero what's the point? If that is the truth, and by the way, I'm not the first one to actually say that. Marami nang nauna sa akin. Mga researchers, economists, okay, even si Attorney Jay Layog, former USEC, already said that. So I echoed what they said because I had to verify kung ano ang facts, okay, and it's really what it is, okay. Again, I'm not the first one to say that. However, sinasabi ko yan not to make people depressed. It is for us to prepare. To prepare kasi ganito ang punto ko dito is it's not setting a premise. I'm going to tell you one thing that not so many people know. Starting 2021,
2021.
OPEC, in particular Saudi Arabia, kasi sila nangunguna parati, decided to cut down production 5% a year starting 2021. Okay, bakit? Because they want the prices to go up. They don't want the price to go below 70. Okay, ang comfortable level nila is 70 to 80. Okay, even more if they can. So, my point here is basically, asa tayo sa 61, pero sa totoo lang, kahit walang gera, tataas yan. Because we do not have control over oil supply and oil pricing. It's all controlled by OPEC. In fact, ang point dito is, yun na, ang sinasabi ko, wala ba tayong extra capacity for the oil wells? And then, I read some articles, and then I found out that the biggest capacity reserve that we have is actually Saudi Arabia. 2 million to 3 million barrels a day na extra capacity. Sabi ko, kung negosyante ka, if you have an oil well, you will maximize it. Pero bakit sila malaki ang capacity na extra? Because they keep on reducing production to actually increase price. So, in the end, mabuti na rin lang, meron silang 2 to 3 million because I think they're using it right now. But the point is, we will always be dependent on oil, and we have to start thinking of getting away from oil rather than magdadasal ka na bababa ang presyo ng gasolina. Hindi naman natin kontrolado kasi merong malaking kumikita. Parati tayong nagsasabi oil companies pero malaking kita dito, yung talagang source ng oil. They control the price, first and foremost. So, if I said anything at all to offend anybody, I do apologize, but I'm telling everybody, we cannot be totally dependent on oil. This is a wake-up call. Kahit walang gera or matatapos ang gera, the oil prices will be there because ang infrastructure na nasira is malalaki. Actually, tinitingnan ko kung minor damage lang to, okay, siguro 3 months time, back to production lahat. Some of the damages are really, really huge, especially Qatar, where LNG is coming from.
Yeah.
And even Qatar, before it stabilizes its supply, it's going to take them at least a year and a half to do that. That's on LNG. And then Kuwait has heavy damage as well. So we have a precarious situation where the supply, even without the war, is already controlled by OPEC. Lalo na ngayon na may gera, they have every reason to actually, well, not cut down on production, but they really don't have any production in some of their sites. So kahit na tapos na ang gera, yun ang kinatatakutan ko, ganito hindi babalik sa 61 in the near future because it's going to take a couple of years for everything to be normalized. Kahit yung tanker natin, maraming lumubog na tanker, do you know that it takes 2 years to build a tanker? And not hindi yan as if pupunta ka ng isang car show at merong available na kotse, pwede mo nang iuwi. Okay, ino-order yan at matagal. Magpalubog ka ng isa, ang tagal i-replenish yan, gagawin yan. So, all this infrastructure, we will have, well, not we, but the players will have to rebuild them again. And it takes time to do that. Actually, my biggest fear is ganito Kung hindi nagkamayan yung dalawa, tapos patuloy ang gera at marami pang nasira, so ang projected na 1 to 2 years, baka lumala pa. It's a good thing ngayon, nagkamayan sila. Pero again, nothing is sure yet until there's really real peace in the Middle East. Right now, it's a negotiation.
Sir, if we assume, let's be extremely optimistic for a very short while. If we assume na tumuloy-tuloy itong ceasefire na to na 2 weeks and something develops positively doon sa negotiating table, how long do you think it will take or how many years realistically would it take for...
To normalize.
I don't even know if normalize is the right word But you know what I mean? Anong timetables or timeframes dito that we're talking about?
The way I see it right now, Saudi has probably the least damage. Okay, but you're looking at Qatar, Kuwait with heavy damage. It's going to take them at least a year and a half, in my estimate.
Minimum. With the current damage.
And that's production. Wala pa yung tanker dyan. So I don't know the real shortage of the tankers at this point. Okay, siguro pag nalibre yung iba, okay na. Pero kung titingnan mo, kahit na nagkamayan tayo ngayon, what people do not understand is some tankers, kahit na merong go signal, pwede ka nang dumaan. Ayaw pa umandar. Bakit? The owners of the ship don't want to traverse the Strait of Hormuz because they don't have any insurance.
Oh, the insurance company premiums, no?
They're still negotiating on their insurance. So ikaw ba, kung ikaw may-ari ka ng barko, walang insurance, kahit na sinabi nila, oy, okay ka na, dumaan ka na.
Hindi ka lalarga.
Tatawid ka ba? Baka mamaya, merong isang sarhento lang yan. Mag-launch ng missile. And then, that's it. Isang tanker yan, no insurance. So, it's not only is the infrastructure, the financial structure that goes with it, actually lahat affected. So for that to normalize will take a long time. In fact, ang kinatatakutan ko pang isa, sa totoo lang, nag-threat si Donald Trump. We're gonna bring you to Stone Age. Okay, bobombahan namin. You know, my biggest fear is even if they bomb Iran, for example, their oil wells, their ports, their storage tanks and everything, tapos a month later, nagkamaya na sila or they took over Iran, we still will lose a lot of capacity. And that's why I think they were very careful on the side of the US to actually hit on infrastructure that will take time to actually rebuild. Because at the end of the day, there will be peace. And when there's peace, asa na tayo? We pick up the pieces depending on how great the damage na ginawa nila. So again, this is positive right now. I'd like the oil to go back to 61, but the indicators show that will take a long time, even if magkamayan sila.
Governor, kahit hiwalay natin yung sinabi nyo kanina na dapat tayong mag-diversify in terms of energy sources. Pero bakit hindi tayo nag-diversify in terms of source ng oil? Why is it na 98% pa rin ang ating oil nang gagaling sa isang lugar na from the very start, alam naman natin, volatile? So, ibang usapin pa yung diversification ng energy sources, ha? Pero
Yes,
imagine kung 98% ng ating oil, isang lugar lang ang pinanggagalingan. And a very volatile area at that.
Well, actually, the 98% is true and not true. Okay, because actually, kung titingnan mo ang importation natin, and DOE can confirm this, okay, about 15 to 20% of our importation comes from the Middle East. Okay, 80% comes from Asia. But then again, Asia's supply comes majority from the Middle East. Pero hindi lahat Middle East. It comes from the US, it comes from Russia, it comes from Canada. Okay, because it's finished product. Binibili natin kasi 80% of the time finished product. We buy it before the war. The majority of our supplier was actually South Korea and China. And then on March, China said, we're no longer selling. So we had to source it, Thailand, Malaysia. Yung 15 to 20%, sino yung nag-i-import na yan? Because the only thing the major thing that comes out of Middle East is actually crude oil, LNG and crude oil. Who uses crude oil? Yung may refinery lang. Yung may refinery lang. And that is Petron. So 15 to 20%, if anything at all, kung merong nakalusot ngayon na galing sa Middle East na oil, it's really crude oil. And the only one using right now crude oil in the Philippines is Petron. The rest is actually we're getting finished product from different sources, mostly from Singapore.
Which also comes from the Middle East.
Which comes from the Middle East, but not all. Because right now, U.S. is actually supplying Asia. Yes, U.S. is an exporter now. Alam mo, 11 years ago, when I was a secretary, they were a net importer of oil. Now they're net exporter of oil, roughly around 4 million barrels a day.
So my question, Governor, is in line with what Ronald is asking in terms of energy sufficiency. Matagal na po itong problema. It's been decades an issue. In fact, I remember when President Marcos Jr. first came into office, his immediate priority was energy sufficiency because it was at that in the aftermath of the Ukraine invasion. But nothing has happened. And as you said, other countries have become net exporters from being net importers, and we haven't moved at all. So, in hindsight, what would you have done differently in your time
Yes.
to make us more sufficient in energy?
Two reasons siguro kung bakit mahirap tayo mag-move. We don't have any source. That's the first one. Kung meron man tayong source, it's not really oil, it's natural gas, and it's coming from West Philippine Sea, and you know that we have a problem there. Mahirap. Alam mo, sa panahon ko, ilang beses ko nagpadala ng exploration ship doon, parating tineturn back. Okay, and we don't have a strong navy to actually support it. So parang ang hirap kung doon tayo kukuha. Dito naman, sa mainland, there's a few, but only a few. Maybe 1% of our total production, our consumption, comes from this country, but that's it. We don't have any resources. Ngayon, I think, aatras ako ng konti, COVID time. Balik tayo sa COVID time. Kasi sa COVID, when I give talks on digitalization, sabi ng iba, nakong buti na lang na-invento ang Lazada, at saka ang Shopee, at saka ang GCash. Kasi kung wala yan, nako, lalo na yung misis ko, nanginginig na kasi walang masyashopingan. Mabuti na lang na-invento itong Lazada during COVID. Sabi ko, sandali lang. You know, Lazada was actually incorporated in 2010. Shopee around the same time. GCash existed 2007. Paymaya existed 2004. We only used them because we had no choice. Ginamit natin. Pero wala na yung COVID, hindi na makaalis sa GCash, hindi na makaalis sa Lazada lahat, na-hook na. Perhaps this is a wake-up call for us, itong nangyari ngayon, pagdating naman sa oil dependency. Kasi ang sales ng EV cars ngayon, talagang lumalaki. And honestly, when everything normalizes to a new normal, hindi the old normal, when we have the new normal, when we forget about this war already, makikita natin na people are going to be conscious already about buying EVs, solar panels, and all those things, which is the brighter side kung anong nangyari ngayon. Kailangan natin ng sampal para gumalaw. And I hope in the future, we will not wait for another disaster for us to actually move. We have limited options at this point. But our option is basically the use of electricity. I don't want to be dependent kasi yung iba sinasabi nila, are you speaking on behalf of oil companies? No. Para sa akin nga, kung pwede, wala na tayong dependent sa langis. The problem is, we are in a state where we are dependent right now. We can move slowly out of, but not completely out of oil dependency. We can start doing that kasi we consume 470,000 barrels a day. Can you imagine if we start reducing even just by 10%? Mga kotse, things that need oil or fuel, okay,
Yeah.
we switch to electricity. Pero sasabihin naman nila, sandali lang. Pag electricity ka, tataas man electricity mo. Dependent naman tayo sa coal. So we keep a balance of the two. If we cannot balance our energy source through sourcing of fuel because we don't have any fuel, at least man lang, ang resources, oil and coal, baka i-balance natin yung dalawa.
Sir,
So-
si Ronald was asking kanina about the timetables for normalizing, and I put that in quotes, normalizing the prices. Yung nga, 61 thereabouts. So, sabihin natin a year and a half. Pero that also depends, I suppose, on how we define normalizing eh. Kasi in previous crisis, for example, I remember the first Gulf War, tumaas din ang presyo ng langis ng sobra-sobra. Parang hindi na bumaba, hindi na nag-normal. Bumaba rin siya, pero it never went back to the pre-Gulf War levels. It just stayed up there, although a little lower. And I remember before the Gulf War, yung gasolina was single-digit prices pa. So are we going to see something like that? Never ever see something along the lines of 60 or 70 per liter. It will always be somewhere up there, although less than what we have right now? Ganun ba yun?
Ganito na lang, if you look at the history of the prices of fuel sa Pilipinas, okay, tumataas. The only time na hindi tumaas siya ng gusto was actually when we were still regulated. Of course, hindi tumaas kasi hindi natural.
Yung OPSF.
It was regulated. Pero on the deregulation side, tumataas yan. Nag-average siya ng about 4% per year ang taas niyan. So you cannot expect prices of fuel to remain where they are forever. They will really move upwards. And I say upwards because number one, we don't have control over the sources. It's still OPEC, number one. Kahit anong gawin natin, pag sila kailangan ng maraming pera, isa pa to, I don't want to suspect them, no? Pero ganito, ang laki ng damage nila, babawiin nila to muna. Hindi muna to magbababa ka agad. Bakit? Marami pang babawiin eh. Okay, so I cannot control that anymore. I can only suspect that if you're a sovereign country, tapos meron kang wealth, meron kang oil, I think that's what you would do. Bawiin muna natin kasi laki ng gastos
Your
natin.
primary income pa.
Oo.
Yes.
At sinong tatamaan? Tayo pa rin.
Tayo.
Why? Because
Tayo.
we don't have any choice. The only way we can counter them is to reduce our dependency on oil. Ayoko ng EV kasi baka tumirik, baka etc. Ayoko gumamit. Marami tayong ayaw. Gusto natin ideal. But there is no ideal situation here. The most important thing is that if we can be less dependent on factors beyond our control, fact like langis. If we can be less dependent on them, find a way to keep a balance of our sources of energy, that's the best way.
Well, in relation dyan, Secretary, at doon sa sinasabi nyo kanina na diversification ng energy sources, anong tingin nyo dun sa other possible sources, halimbawa nuclear, na nag-explore ngayon ang gobyerno with the US and perhaps France? No? Ikalawa, other sources of energy. Halimbawa, I was invited more than a year ago sa Singapore para pumunta sa isang kanilang power plant sa isang isla of their mainland, no? At pinakita nila that they are getting energy from water. Hinihiwalay nila yung hydrogen. At ang sabi ng Singaporean government, in 2035, all of their vehicles manggagaling na dun sa hydrogen ng water ang energy source. So, ibig sabihin, the technology is already there. No? It's already there. Bakit hindi natin nini-explore yan? In relation sa sinabi nyo na diversification.
During my time as Secretary of Energy, we are actually exploring everything. Kaya lang, until it is commercialized, okay, mahirap pumasok. Kasi kung hindi pa commercial level yan, there's a lot of, sabihin na lang natin, parang marami pang depekto yan, na baka mas mahal i-adapt yan with all the defects. We need a matured technology. Kaya yan ang kailangan natin. So, hydrogen, actually, ang nag-advertise niyan, Toyota eh. Sinasabi nila na ang fuel nila will be, hydrogen. Hindi na electric, hindi etc. Yan ang sinasabi nila. Pero up to now, unless you produce it commercially, it's still on the experimental side. It has to be produced commercially first before we can actually enter into it.
Pero parang solar, Governor, matagal na itong commercialized eh. Pero nasaan tayo? Nakilibiste pa rin tayo? No? So, yung ganun ba na kahit na commercialized na, kung hindi tayo mag-aayos, then pupulutin pa rin yan sa pansitan.
Yes. Again, solar, during my time, was actually very expensive at my time. So, we had to push for feed-in tariff to force solar. Ang lahat sinasabi, nako, solar, ang payback period niyan. Okay, for the government, no? Itong mga feed-in tariff, 20 years yan, ang tagal. Windmill, ang tagal, 20. Ang sagot ko naman, kung nagsimula tayo 20 years ago, tapos na tayo ngayon, bayad na to. Puro tayo reklamo na matagal. So, we forced it anyway. And believe it or not, solar is actually, compared to 11 years ago, okay, ngayon, maraming nagsosolar na. But, kailangan ng push ng government. Hindi po pwedeng hayaan ang commercial lang dito. Because there are two things about solar na medyo yung iba, medyo ayaw. Okay, number one, education. Nako, bababa talaga ang kuryente ko. Magkano naman? Okay. Pangalawa, ang mahal naman ng installation, capital outlay. And this is probably where the government can come in because it is now grid parity. Pag sinabing grid parity is comparable na to. Ang cost mo, comparable na sa grid, even lower. So, all we need to do is actually, number one, educate the people. That's what I'm doing in the province of Leyte. In-educate ko ang mga tao namin. The first one to go solar was actually the capital with batteries, okay? And the next move is now to go to the municipio and convince them that I'm actually saving money. Because education is very, very important dito. Ang Pilipino kasi, mahilig sa savings, okay? Sabi ko nga, magtipid tayo ng kuryente, magtipid tayo ng fuel, pero walang nagtitipid. Pero pag nagmahal, lahat nagtitipid. Kailangan may financial aspect eh.
Governor, I'm gonna circle back to my earlier question. So now that we are living through this crisis, do you think it was a good idea to deregulate back then? And could you give us some insight into the relationship between DOE and Petron? Because one is supposed to be the government side, the regulator, pero throughout this crisis, they've always said they're hands-off when it comes to a lot of things, pricing included, right? Nawala silang control because everything is deregulated, free market now, which we understand. Pero is there really nothing the government can do, the DOE can do in a crisis like this? What's the relationship like?
Actually, sa deregulation law natin, okay, implied na independent, hindi ka na pwede makialam. Except on certain cases. Like, for example, if there is a shortage, the DOE can actually come in and get involved. Number two, okay, wala naman tayong shortage for now. Number two, when there is a war. Pero hindi rin define kung gera dito or gera sa Middle East. It's just a war. And then number three is basically if there is a crisis. And the president just actually declared an energy emergency. So DOE can come in. In what capacity? You cannot dictate prices pa rin because that's under the law. No? What can you do? Ensure that there is competition, number one. Number two, ensure that nobody is making money and taking advantage. So what in other countries na deregulated like South Korea, what do they do in times of crisis? Even now, what do? They audit the oil companies. They come in, look at their books, okay, look at their purchase price, break it down, and make sure that basically the margins that are being made are not basically taking advantage of the public. And I hope that the DOE is doing that right now, and probably, if they can, divulge it to the public para mawala na yung iniisip ng publiko na kumikita lahat. Because the only way you can ang sinasabi ko parati, open competition. Yan ang ginawa ng deregulation. But competition is not complete without transparency. Competition parating may transparency. So ang nawawala siguro dito ng konti is transparency. That's why yesterday I talked to the Philippine Chamber of Commerce Leyte chapter, Region 8 chapter, at maglo-launch kami ng Price Watch. Ibig sabihin, hindi social media, hindi community-based, but kami mismo mag-update ng mga presyo para makikita ng lahat kung lahat nag-uusap-usap o hindi pagdating sa presyo. So, it's transparency and competition. Perhaps if the oil companies and Regina, let me clarify ha, kasi pag sinasabi nila, alam mo, ang unang nababash dito, gas station eh. Nagmahal kayo, mga walang hiya kayo, okay, lahat nagre-reklamo. Pero actually, kung titingnan mo yung gas station, most of the independent gas stations buy from the big oil companies. Shell, Caltex, Phil Oil, yung iba mga Phoenix Petroleum, for example, Sea Oil, bumibili lang sila doon on a weekly basis. So, ang bili nila doon, tutubo sila. Minsan nga, meron akong alam na isang independent, mas mahal siya kaysa Petron. Pero kahit anong gawin niya, hindi niya talaga mapababa ang kanyang presyo. Bakit? Mahal ang kuha niya. So, if we have to look at kung sino ang titingnan natin dito, it's not the pump prices ang titingnan natin dito. It's the oil company supplying the gas station.
Right.
Yun ang missing link.
So ulitin ko lang, Governor. The DOE can audit the books of Petron, for example, right now, because we are in a time of crisis, and they should be doing that because that's part of the oil deregulation law.
Yes, they should be actually at any time they can. Pero more so, ito ginagamit itong power na to usually ng ibang deregulated countries during crisis to make sure that margins are put in place. Walang nagte-take advantage. They can do that now. And then show it to the public if the oil companies, kasi sinasabi naman ng oil companies, hindi kami kumikita dito, mahal rin ang kuha namin. So let's put it on the table so that we can see.
Well, Governor, in relation din dyan sa tanong ni Reg, no, one of the elephants in the room, oil deregulation, which is perhaps not an immediate issue, pero significantly medium to long term. No? Nangyari kasi yung oil deregulation at a very different epoch, at a very different time. At ang pinanggalingan niyan, pinaghugutan niyan, ay corruption in government, inefficiency in government. 40 years back, ay hindi pa tayo pwedeng magkaroon ng hybrid, certain level of deregulation, at the same time, a certain level of regulation. Halimbawa, itong buffer stock, sa ganitong klaseng sitwasyon, hindi na pwede yung 30-60 day na reserves, no? Mamamatay yung ating bansa kung gano'n lang yung ating reserve, no? Kaya may mga elements ng oil deregulation na definitely kailangan baguhin, which means changing the law. Pero pwede ba tayo magkaroon ng law na hybrid?
I think we can, pero ang hybrid, actually si Sec Garin, nag-mention siya that maybe we can review, and I agree, it can be reviewed, pero not abolish. Reviewed and probably come up with hybrid. Because tingnan muna natin ngayon, which country right now are doing rationing? I can tell you, Bangladesh, nagrarasyon na ngayon.
Thailand.
Sri Lanka and Myanmar. They're actually rationing right now. They're all regulated countries. Ibig sabihin, ang bumibili ng langis, gobyerno from outside. Ang nagdi-distribute, binibigay sa private sector, pero hanggang doon lang at dictated ang presyo. Silang dictated ng presyo. If they were deregulated, probably their prices are more than ours right now. But they decided to regulate it. Anong nangyari? Hindi nila kayang bilhin, hindi nila kayang i-subsidize yung difference ng presyo na sa tingin nila dapat acceptable sa tao at yung totoong presyo pag kinuha nila sa Middle East. So anong nangyari? Since they don't have enough money to subsidize, ang ginawa nila, magrasyon tayo. Gusto nyo ng mababang presyo? Walang problema, pero magrarasyon tayo. Pero kung gusto nyo naman ng walang rasyon, mag-aanli pa kayo, may free market prices tayo ngayon, kagaya ng Pilipinas, which is lahat naman nagrereklamo kasi sobrang mahal. So, where should we be? Maraming ideya sa mga hybrid. Pero ang nasa isip ko ganito, kasi pinagdududahan nga natin itong mga oil companies na kumikita. This is just basically an idea that came into my mind. Why don't government have their own gas stations?
You mean,
they will compete. They'll compete. If they don't compete on the market level, magsasubsidize sila. Now, under peacetime, ayaw ni gobyerno magsubsidize. Why should they? Acceptable naman sa atin yung 61, for example, so they'll sell it at 61, yung diesel. Now, later on, nagka-crisis. They can go with the other companies, with the private companies, na nagtataas together with the market, or they can choose to subsidize. But I will tell you what will happen. Okay, if they do that. Lahat pipila sa kanila, wala nang pipila sa private. Okay, ang private naman, magte-temporarily magsara because I can't sell my oil. Pero what will happen there is, si gobyerno, this is just an example of the comparison between government run and private run. Si gobyerno naman, ang daming kliyente to the point na every time may magpapagas sa kanila, magsasubsidize sila. And they will also run out of fuel because they cannot afford the subsidy. I'll give you an idea kasi hindi ma-picture ng lahat kung ano ang cost ng subsidy. Ganito, for every 1 peso subsidy ng Philippines, kahit ano, diesel, gasoline, it is 73 million a day for every 1 peso. 73. Kung 100 pesos ang isa-subsidize mo per liter, that is basically
7.3.
kailan yan? 7.3 billion a day. Ganito na lang. The price of diesel right now is 157. Lagyan mo nga 160. Okay? I-subsidize yan ng gobyerno. In 1 year. Kunyari, 1 year, hindi bumaba. Isa-subsidize ng gobyerno para 61 lang babayaran natin. The government will have to subsidize roughly around 2.3 trillion.
Oh,
We have
okay.
a budget of
Yeah.
7 trillion. I don't know where you will get 2.3 trillion.
Yeah. So Gov, we're gonna run into the same problem as the OPSF, which is it's gonna blow a hole in the national budget kasi subsidize ka ng subsidize, right? So mahirap din yung ganong scenario.
So there is also the government kasi can actually come up with their own gas station. This is suntok sa ano lang to ha. This is just idea kasi maraming ways of subsidizing, but it is actually to show the public between the private and the government to the point na kagaya ng ibang countries ngayon, they have reduced their subsidy. Hindi na namin kaya i-subsidize yung buo. So kahit yung mga iba, tumaas na rin ang presyo nila. So there is a control mechanism on how much you can actually subsidize to the point na kung hindi mo na talaga kaya, you let the private sector come in and sell their gasoline at the same price. So, pros and cons. Okay? Maganda ang national kapag may crisis. Pero pag walang crisis, you let the market forces take its place. So, what do we do if there's any amendment? The amendment is basically centering on times when there are crises. What can the government do? Like, stock. Kasi iniwan natin sa private sector ang pag-stock. Alam mo, ganitong oil companies mag-isip ha. Okay, I will stock 90 days para merong stock ang Pilipinas. Here's my problem. Bumili ako ng 90 days worth of gasoline and diesel, good for 90 days at the price today. Tapos nagkamayan si Iran tsaka si US, tapos next week bumagsak ang presyo. I have 90 days of inventory which I am now forced to sell at a lower price. So, anong gagawin ko? Hindi na ako magsa-stock. Ano ba ang requirement ng DOE? 15 days lang for finished product. Hanggang 15 days na lang ako. Kasi delikado eh. But they're not thinking about the country. They're thinking about their company. So that's the difference. So perhaps on times of crisis or even before a crisis happens, the government should have their own stockpile. The private sector does not want to take a stockpile. It will cost them 160 billion
Yeah.
pesos. So that's where the government comes in.
Sir, let me ask you, sir, a very popular question that's been doing the rounds. Should we be allowing oil companies to charge us for acquisition, for replacement costs rather than acquisition cost? Kasi for example, diba, what we do now is we average MOPS for the entire week previous to the coming Tuesday, and that's what we peg our prices on. Even though that oil that we just bought will take how many weeks or how many days for it to get here and be sold to the public?
Maraming explanation dyan, pero siguro the simplest way for me to explain is ganito. Okay, meron akong stock, sure, mura ko nabili to. Now, meron akong binibenta ngayon. However, every time magbenta ako ngayon, I have to replace it. Kailangan mag-stock ako. Kaya lang ang presyo ngayon mahal na. Ano ba ang gagamitin ko ng pera para pambili sa replacement? Yung binabayad nyo sa akin pag kayo nagpapagas. Ngayon, kung murang bayad nyo sa akin, paano ko bibili? Mahal na ngayon eh. So, anong gagawin ko kung pinorse ako na wag ako magtaas ng presyo? What will happen is I will not restock. Maybe I'll just close. Okay. That's parang sasabihin nila, parang mind conditioning ka naman kasi yan ang sinasabi nga, mind conditioning eh. So sabi ko, okay, ang sabi ko, I'd like to test it, pero if we test it, baka magka-shortage tuloy tayo. That's why the government should have a control over its own supply that it can give to the people. Right now, it doesn't have. Sabi ko nga, kung merong gas station ang gobyerno na mura, pero ang magpapagas, mga bus lang tsaka jeepney, because that will keep the inflation down, that's a big help, no? Pero to control the private sector is a bit risky. Alam ko, may magko-comment, nako, malaki kinikita niyan. I don't want to experiment at this point. Not in this crisis.
Yeah, pero di ba, Gob, kung gas station ka, pwede ka magsara. Pero kung ikaw ay big player, parang nakakatawa naman na sasabihin mo na, kung malulugi ako dyan, magsasara na lang ako. Ang laki nung kwan mo eh. Nung profit margin mo. Ang laki nung nung kwan mo eh. So, lagi na lang bang itatransfer sa consumers yung ganyang klaseng, sabi nga namin, rocket and feather? Pag tumaas ang presyo ng global market, ang bilis, overnight. Pag bumaba, katulad ngayon, ang tagal. No? Sobrang tagal. May hirap maunawaan ng kanyan eh, karaniwang consumer. Kahit anong ipaliwanag natin. No?
Tama ka, Ronald. Kahit anong gawin ko dito, talagang hindi acceptable ang explanation. Paulit-ulit tayo dito. The only explanation that is acceptable, and para sa akin, it's up to the oil companies, if they're willing to do it, is let DOE audit their books, let it come out para makita if they're really making money or not. Because doon lang naman, wala nang ibang pupuntahan to eh. Are you making money? Are you taking advantage of the situation? Hanggat hindi natin nabubuksan yan, hindi magiging open yan sa public, pagdududahan talaga ang mga oil companies.
Okay. Maraming salamat.
What did you last night?
Raj, go.
What did you make of the Ramon Ang's saying that the government can take back Petron if it wants to anytime naman daw?
Alam mo yung refinery niya ngayon, there were times before the war, there were times na hindi umaandar yan. 4 na buwan, 3 buwan, hindi umaandar. Bakit? Mas mura kung kumuha ka sa Singapore. So habang hindi umaandar yan, may overhead ka. Okay? May nagsasabi na nga, yung mga ibang tao, benta na lang natin to, mag-import na lang tayo. But sinasabi nga, a country without a refinery is very risky. He kept it. And it's kind of paying off right now. Pero kung siya lang papipiliin, kung meron kang refinery na sinasara mo kasi minsan mas mababang presyo sa Singapore, kung ako negosyante, parang ganun yung sasabihin ko, gusto nyo sa inyo na lang to. Kasi ang overhead ko malaki eh. But then again, I'm not sure why the government is not seriously looking into it. Because you don't really have to buy it as a whole. You can be a shareholder. Now you have a say.
Okay.
Maraming salamat,
Maraming
Gob.
salamat for talking to us, later Governor Jericho Icot Petilla. Thank you, sir.
Salamat, Gob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You're watching StoryCon on One News. We will just take a break. We'll be right back.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
We've got developing news in the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to StoryCon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao, and of course with us, Raul Llamas, our heckler, and via Zoom, our principal, Regina Lay.
Talagang principal, ah.
The House Mega Panel is currently holding a hearing on the country's fuel crisis response. And for details, we have News 5 correspondent Marian Enriquez. Marian, what do you have for us?
Yes, Bok, gumugulong nga no, na yung pagdinig nitong super committee na tinawag ng Legislative Energy Action Development o LEAD Council tungkol nga dito sa pagtugon sa krisis sa langis. At kanina nga no, at tuloy-tuloy pa rin ngayon, nagbe-briefing yung iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno dito sa 13 komite at kabilang nga dito yung Department of Energy, mga kalihim ng Department of Finance, Budget and Management, ilang mga kinatawan ng Department of Foreign Affairs at iba pa. At sa umpisa pa lang nung pagdinig, nilatag na ni House Speaker Bogie D yung dalawang pangunahing layunin nitong pagdinig. Una nga po riyan yung agarang pagtugon o yung targeted assistance para maibsan daw ang pasanin ng mga Pinoy. At ikalawa, yung pangmatagalang solusyon. Ito nga po yung reforma sa enerhiya, ekonomiya at seguridad sa supply para nga magkaroon ng resilience sa tuwing tatamaan ng ganitong crisis. At kanina nga doon sa sinabi pa ng Department of Energy, may sapat daw tayong supply ng langis pang hanggang 50 days o 50 araw. Nang matanong kung bakit hanggang ngayon hindi pa rin sinususpinde yung excise tax sa langis. Ang sagot nga ng ahensya ay pinauubayan na raw sa Pangulo yung pag-anunsyo nito. Tinanong din yung ahensya kung ano yung mga kailangang kapangyarihan ng DOE tuwing magkakaroon nga ng ganitong krisis para magkaroon ng kontrol lalo't deregulated nga yung industriya ng langis. At isa nga sa mga sinabi niya, dating Congresswoman at ngayon Energy Secretary Sharon Garin, dapat daw kasi nga may triggers para pumasok yung regulations. Kabilang na nga riyan, yung pagtingin nga nila doon sa kita ng mga oil companies. Parang sinabi pa, nilinaw pa ni Chair Kimbo, Ways and Means, Congressman Miro Kimbo, sinabi niya na anong power ba yon? Ito ba yung paglalagay ng cap doon sa premium or income? Sabi nga niya, Secretary Garin, dapat yan kabilang doon yung trigger, kapati na rin yung presyo nga. Gayon din na yung kung titingnan yung yung availability and reserves ng ating mga langis. At gumagawa ngayon sila ng pag-aaral tungkol dito and magsusumite sila ng panukala na pwede nilang ihain dito sa Kongreso. At ang tanong nga kanina rin, Bok, kung dahil nga nag-ceasefire na 2 weeks ang US at Iran at nagbabaan yung mga global oil prices, mararamdaman ba rin ito dito sa bansa? Ang sagot nga dyan ni Secretary Garin ay hindi pa po yan mararamdaman. Malabo pa yan kasi even daw kahit matapos yung gera ngayon, marami pa raw yung kailangan isaalang-alang, lalo na nga matatagalan daw makabalik sa dati dahil kung titingnan din natin, nasira daw yung mga infrastructures, yung mga LNG, yung liquefied natural gas doon sa Qatar that will take 5 years daw to fix, and may mga pipelines pa dyan doon sa infrastructure sa Middle East. So kung titingnan daw natin, mukhang matatagalan pa bago raw makabalik doon sa sinasabing below 100 pesos. Balik sa inyo.
Tama ba itindi ko, Miriam, na among the powers that they're looking at, or at least considering, is the power to put a cap on the income of oil companies? Did I understand that correctly, or you meant something different?
Well, hindi pa yan nilinaw kanina, pero isa yun doon sa nabanggit na ano yung mga trigger na dapat pagtuunan ng pansin or pwede i-considera para nga mag-regulate kumbaga ng ahensya or ng pamahalaan itong mga oil companies. We all know naman na deregulated po itong industriya na ito. Pero yun yung isa sa mga nabanggit. Hindi pa malinaw kung paano yun dahil very in passing lang din nabanggit ni Secretary Garin. And nilinaw nga po ni Congressman Miro Kimbo, titingnan nila yung kikitain, kumbaga may cap ng kita ng mga oil companies.
Mm-hmm.
Balik sa inyo.
Kasi that would be interesting kung sakaling they look at that. Kasi in our discussion kanina with the former Energy Secretary Jericho Padilla, those are the things that, for example, COA could also be looking at if they were able to audit the books of the... Hindi pala COA audit private companies to
It has to be DOE.
DOE, yeah. Yeah. If they are able to audit the books to see kung excessive, but then again, that's also subjective, di ba? Kung
Pero
excessive.
kahit makita nila halimbawa, Reg, na malaki yung windfall, meron ba silang power para...
That's the other question
Parang wala namang rules doon. So, halimbawa, malaki ang kita nila. So what?
Although may doon tayo
meron
sa
ba-
hearing.
So, pag malaki yung,
Pero
pag
may
malaki yung
limit
kita,
yun? Oo.
it depends on how you interpret it. Pwede na yun, for example, to classify under profiteering. Kasi again, in times of crisis, hindi ko lang alam who gets to decide and if there's a certain percentage that you're looking at. Pero for example, in the case of DTI, for them, 10% increase from month on month is already profiteering. Hindi ko alam if DOE has that kind of benchmark.
Oo. Kasi yung ibang, di ba, yung ibang manufacturers and sellers ng goods niya, tinatamaan sila ng profiteering charges paminsan-minsan.
Ano nakalagay
Yeah.
lang kasi sa oil deregulation law, pwede nilang i-check. Pero beyond that, wala namang nakalagay. Paano i-check yung kita? Paano?
I think we're in uncharted territory here. Di ba? It's something interesting to talk about and look at if they have at all that power. But yun binabanggit kanina ni Marian na nabanggit lamang yung posibilidad, di ba? Nabanggit lamang ng paglalagay ng cap doon sa, if I understand you correctly, sa income ng oil companies. But even that is only in passing.
Ito yung quote kasi ni Secretary Garin kanina, no? If DOE can, at the very least, dictate how much they should earn in times of those difficult times, then the public can be more protected from profiteering and any other taking advantage of the situation. So yun yung isa nga doon sa mga na-mention ni Secretary Garin. Kaya nilinaw ni Congressman Kimbo, so tingin, dapat ba may power na ang DOE to cap the premium or income? Exactly. Ultimately, Mr. Chair, yun yung sinabi ni Secretary Garin. And also nga, bukod doon, yung sinasabi niya, dapat din tignan yung trigger sa presyo, sa availability ng reserves, pati daw inventory level. Pag below 15 na, yun, pero dapat din daw yung tignan.
Ang tanong, Marian, doon sa tanong ni Congressman Kimbo, ang tanong ba niya ay dapat magkaroon o meron na ganung klaseng power? Magkaiba kasi yun eh. Yung kung magkakaroon will entail something more. Pero kung ngayon ay meron na, ay pwede na nilang gawin immediately.
Mukhang wala pang ganong power kasi this was his clarificatory question. So, ang tanong niya, ang pinag-uusapan, ano po ba yung power na yon? So, tama bang interpretation ko when you say that during urgent emergency situations like today, the DOE should have the power to cap the premium or income? So, yun yung tanong niya eh. Ang sagot ni Garin kanina, ultimately, yes. So, yun yung hinihiling nila kumbaga.
Parang natakot ako doon sa binanggit mo kanina na quoting Garin na some of the infrastructure may take 5 years to be repaired.
Yun, ang isa sa mga nabanggit niya. Kasi may nag-mention during the interpellation nga po ni PJ Bayanihan, Representative Brian Poe, tinanong niya yung tungkol doon sa paano ba itong presyo ng langis. Kasi may ilang mga constituents din na nagtatanong hanggang anong presyo ba ng langis yung kakayanin mo magtrabaho, mga tricycle to. Sabi na, hanggang 200 lang, titigil na daw siya. Pag pumalo pa daw ito ng 200, lilipat na daw ng ibang linya, kumbaga, ng trabaho. And Garin said kanina, dahil nga doon sa ceasefire, actually malabo pang makita yan sa ngayon kasi wala parang visibility kung ano ba talaga yung mangyayari. Kung talaga bang titigil o kasi di ba parang magulo pa rin talaga yung pag-uusap. And as we speak right now, yung 20% daw na kinukuha nga natin na supply doon sa Middle East, paano yung supply na makukuha doon? Kasi nga, marami din daw ng mga infrastructures itinamaan, naapektuhan, nasira po dito sa mga bambahan nga nangyari. So, wala pa talaga rin kasiguraduhan kung kailan mararamdaman pagbagba nitong presyo ng langis. Sabi nga niya, it will take months. So, yun ang sinabi niya kanina.
Okay, we have to say thank you not to Marian Enriquez, our correspondent from the House of Representatives kasi our guest is already online. Maraming salamat, Marian Enriquez ng TV5.
Salamat, Marian.
Thank you. Thank you.
And joining us today is UP School of Economics Assistant Professor JC Punongbayan. Sir, Professor JC, magandang hapon and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Magandang hapon. Sorry.
Laki ba time zone?
Magandang hapon, Prof. Long time no see. Kamusta
Hello,
si
daming nangyayari.
Kamusta si Walden?
Pang ibang episode yun.
Ikaw talaga, sutil ka talaga. Sir, let me start off with, of course, you had a paper about excise taxes on oil products. If if the excise taxes are suspended as what was being pushed earlier. And
Mukhang may desisyon na si ES Recto na kalahati lang.
May
excise tax.
breaking news tong si Ronald.
Kalahati lang daw ang
Who are you quoting?
suspend. Si Ralph mismo. Si ES Ralph.
Teka, ano yun? Official sourcing yan o ano?
Official siya. Bakit wala rito sa news niyo?
Okay, sige.
Actually, narinig ko na rin yun
diba?
from another source.
Okay. Sir, first of all, let's begin with that. Your reaction to that, kung sakaling ang kalahati ang isuspend.
Well, pretty much I agree with the economic managers who have been grilled today. Kasi kailangan nating i-acknowledge na, of course, definitely, no question, kailangan talaga ng marginalized sector ng tulong. Mahihirap, as well as yung transport sector. Pero yung tanong, saan kukunin yung pera para doon? So in an ideal world, kung saan walang korupsyon sa Pilipinas, if you crunch the numbers, magkakaroon pa rin ng deficit ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Ibig sabihin, kulang pa rin talaga yung kinikita niya compared sa gastusin. Even now, I think nasa more than 1 trillion pesos every year ang deficit. So at the same time na there's a huge demand for ayuda financial assistance to the sectors, yung revenue, kulang na nga siya to begin with, lalo pang magkukulang kung tanggalin natin itong fuel taxes. And in my paper, I argued using data na in fact, it's the richer segments of society that pay the great bulk of gas and diesel taxes. Especially diesel. Kasi yung mayayaman, sila yung may-ari ng mga Alphard, ng mga pick-up, ng mga Nissan Terra, etc. So, sa kanila, sila talaga nagbabayad niyan. Kasi kung isipin mo, sa mga poorest households, nagko-commute or merong motor, pero wala naman yung mga gas guzzlers or diesel guzzlers na mga SUVs. And as a share of their income, yung mayaman talaga yung gumagastos on diesel. So, yun, may trade-offs talaga.
So, Prof, katulad
JC,
ng sabi ni Winnie Monsod ay basically tutol ka dyan sa excise tax na cancellation. In terms of pros and cons, mas marami yung negative aspect kesa doon sa positive. Pero halimbawa, how about IBAT? Paano hindi mo naman pwedeng sabihin na yung pag sinuspend yung IBAT ay mga mayayaman lamang ang makikinabang dahil across sectors yan. So, kumpara halimbawa dito sa excise tax, anong tingin mo kung sakaling isususpend yung IBAT na hinihingi ng labor?
Yes, I think your proposal is to suspend the VAT specifically on fuel, on petroleum products.
Food.
Actually, yung DOF meron na silang projection ng foregone revenues. And in fact, mas malaki yung mawawalang revenues dun sa excise tax, which is a fixed tax, rather than yung VAT. Kasi you have to acknowledge as well na habang tumataas, nag-skyrocket itong presyo ng gasolina at diesel, yung demand for these products lumiliit din. So bagamat, sige, porsyento siya nung presyo at the pump, pero habang tumataas, nag-skyrocket pataas, yung konsumo lumiliit din. So in other words, yung revenue from the VAT, tanggalin natin yung VAT, pero maliit lang yung ambag niya dun sa matitipid ng mga tao. So yung foregone revenues, mas maliit siya compared sa excise tax.
JC, I take your insights on board. Pero kasi, so the counter argument to that is because we have such an imperfect system that suspending excise taxes is the easiest method at this point. So people need immediate relief at this point kasi 160 pesos a liter na yung diesel. Yung targeted subsidies, yung ayuda naman, until now, they're still rolling it out. We don't have a national ID, so mano-mano yan. 39 days into the war, they're still not done handing them out. So some jeepney drivers, some bus operators, talagang hindi na nila kaya. In their words, naghihingalo na. So, I guess the counter-argument to suspending excise taxes is it's the easiest. They can just stop collecting at entry point. So, and then same for VAT, I guess. Although I share your concern about yung masisira, this will destroy the national budget. And years down the road, we will end up paying for it with higher taxes kasi lalaki yung debt to GDP. So what do you think about the other side of this?
So definitely there are frictions when it comes to the distribution of ayuda. No question about that. Maraming leakages. Marami yung mahihirap na hindi nakakakuha ng ayuda, pero at the same time marami yung mga non-poor na nakakakuha ng ayuda. So definitely merong leakages. And you're right na this is one of the easiest ways to do it. But the argument coming from professional economists is that this is a blunt instrument. In the sense na if you can imagine yung Titanic, okay, so nahit na natin yung iceberg, okay? So yung access to sa mga lifeboat, do sa mga raft for example, parang inuuna mong maka-access yung mga mayaman, yung mga nasa first class, yung nasa upper deck. Kumbaga parang paunahan tayo dun sa rafts, life rafts, do sa mga rafts, and then yung mga mahihirap below deck, parang sila yung, may access din sila pero may preferential access yung mga nasa upper deck. So parang yun yung regressivity na sinasabi pagdating dito sa pagtanggal noong excise taxes. Kaya nga ang mga umaaray ngayon, mga vocal, ay yung mga may-ari ng mga sasakyan, etc. Of course, yung mga PUV drivers, syempre talagang obviously tinatamaan talaga sila. Pero that's an argument in favor of targeted ayuda kasi halimbawa meron namang rehistro halimbawa yung mga operators sa LTFRB, fairly easy. Of course, merong leakages din, pero ma-identify mo rin yung mga drivers in terms of their network. And you also have to acknowledge na at the same time, hindi naman yung poorest 30% millions of households, hindi naman lahat nasa sektor ng transportasyon. So in that sense, ay pwede mo talagang i-target, parang surgical na ayuda ito kung saan pwede mong i-funnel yung ayuda dun sa more or less identifiable na sector kaysa yung blunt instrument na across the board ay tanggalin natin.
Sir, we've seen the back and forth nga dito sa debate na should we suspend or not itong excise taxes. And apparently, the President decided to meet everybody halfway, literally halfway.
Kalahati talaga.
Kalahati talaga sinuspend. But yun nga suspend mo kalahati, I suppose, ang mangyayari niyan is bababa ang presyo ng gasolina ng 5 piso, ang diesel ng 3 piso.
Pero malaking bahagi na, nagkasubuan na Pina-aprobahan mo na, ginawa mo, sinertify mo urgent, tapos ngayon hindi mo ipirmahan.
Pero with that, considering nga na yun, you'll only see reductions of 5 pesos and 3 pesos, and you'll I don't know how much you will lose now. Earlier, it was 136 billion dapat between now and the end of the year kung buong sususpend. Pero ngayon kalahati lamang, I suppose, mga nasa less than 60 billion. So is that a better compromise or is it actually a worse compromise? What do you think? Are we better off with a complete suspension, the half suspension, or with no suspension?
Si Ed parang, huwag na lang nga. Suspend mo halfway.
Well, you have to note na, as I mentioned earlier, fixed tax kasi itong excise tax. So, bawat kada litro ng gasolina at diesel ay 10 pesos as well as 6 pesos respectively for gas and diesel. Pero, tandaan din natin na at the same time, nag-i-skyrocket pataas ang presyo. So, habang lalong tumataas ang presyo ng gasolina at diesel, yung fixed na buwis na binabayad natin ay palit ng palit bilang porsyento ng kabuang presyo. So, kumbaga, yung impact, sige, tanggalin natin yan, pero ilang piso na ba yung tinaas nung presyo? So, as a percent, lumiliit siya.
Lumiliit. Yes, sir. Pero what do you think nga? Are we better off with this halfway measure or does it answer the problem?
Wala ka na rin magagawa dahil na-aprobahan na yung kalahati.
Pero, kaya na-notice nyo rin merong malaking lag, matagal lang ang napirmahan pero hindi pinapatupad pa rin. I think merong pushback talaga coming from the economic managers, the economists in government. Kasi, sige, sabihin natin kalahati, tanggalin natin. Billions na agad yan, yung mawawala na revenue sa gobyerno na madali sanang kolektahin. Kaya nga favorite ng mga gobyerno excise taxes coming from Pinoy Style, etc. Yung mga sin taxes kasi madali silang kolektahin. So even if half tanggalin natin, it will easily amount to billions of pesos na. Billions na pwede mo sanang i-transfer or i-funnel dun sa mahihirap. So sige, tanggalin natin itong kalahati. Pero ang tanong ngayon, sige, saan natin huhugutin itong pera na to? Yung mawawalang or yung forgone revenues. I think si Congressman Leviste, sabi niya, kanina narinig ko parang pinopropose niya, tanggalin or kalpasan natin yung sahod ng mga nasa gobyerno, yung personal services. Sa isip-isip ko, what if simulan natin sa Congress? Ang dami nilang perks sa Congress. Maging ehemplo sila. So mag-austerity muna tayo sa Congress, tignan natin saan tayo kakarating.
And then si Ronald has a suggestion, wealth tax.
Wealth tax daw.
Starting with him, I-audit na yan.
Naisip ko rin.
Sobrang liit nun. No? Hindi naman ako tiga Forbes. Di tulad ng iba rito. No? Pero ano tingin mo ron na JC? Dahil si Winnie Wansod ang una nag-suggest nun. Yung wealth tax. How viable is that? No? Considering na mag-a-approve nan ay yung wealthy.
Exactly.
The other side of it is sinabi na ng Malacanang that they're worried about turning away foreign investors with a wealth tax. What do you think?
Well, let's start with the president himself. 'Di ba? Meron pa siyang 203 billion pesos na unpaid real estate tax liabilities before he came into office.
Huh?
What if simulan natin doon?
Meron ba?
Kapag nagbayad na siya ng 203 billion and then saka tayo mag-usap ng wealth tax.
Tsaka sir, yung wealth, you can only tax what is declared. What about hidden wealth?
Yeah. Exactly. We only need to learn from the best practices of the Marcos family. Ano mang ginawa nila? So, sa mga offshore accounts, William
Offshore accounts,
Saunders,
yeah.
Jane Ryan, sa Switzerland, etc. So, if you put yourselves in the shoes of these billionaires and then you get wind of the fact that government is going to pass a wealth tax, you will change your behavior and hide your wealth as soon as possible, hire a bunch of lawyers, accountants, etc. They're always many steps ahead of the bureaucracy. And we also have to ask, ano ba yung capacity ng gobyerno para habulin itong yaman ng mga... nagkalimutan na nga tayo sa corruption scandal last year. Si Zaldico na still at large. So kapag nakuha na yung pera mula sa kanila, nagbayad na si Pangulong Marcos, saka tayo mag-usap ng wealth tax.
Nakaka-depress yung sagot mo, sir.
Pero ayun nga, all things constant. Saan ka kukuha? Anong gagawin mo? No? Kung very limited yung magagawa ng excise tax, in limbo pa, wala pang konkretong proposal doon sa IBAT, tapos tuloy pa rin ang massive corruption, hindi pa rin nababawi yung mga ninakaw. Tapos, what do you do? No? For example, kung ikaw, JC, ang nasa gobyerno, anong gagawin mo? No? If you put yourself in that sordid, dark place, anong gagawin mo sa kalagitnaan ng ganitong crisis?
Sordid talaga.
Well, I will pressure Congress to pass that emergency spending bill. I think yun yung first order of business. Kasi marami namang ways para i-realign yung mga items sa budget para dito sa... Just like what happened during the pandemic, di ba? And one would hope that we already learned the lessons from the pandemic, di ba? Dapat mabilis yung ganitong klaseng mga legislation to realign items from the budget and then funnel them to the response to this crisis. Pero hanggang ngayon, nasa na yung Bayanihan 3. So, I think I will push Congress to pass that. Kasi doon magmumula yung spending on many important projects like yung targeted subsidies, yung tulong sa mahihirap pagdating sa bayad sa kuryente, sa pagbili ng LPG, yung financial assistance, ayuda, and also infrastructure to protect the supply chains. Kasi I'm very much afraid, and in fact, we already saw it from the inflation data released yesterday, that food inflation will really go up. And in fact, it has already gone up. So yung fertilizer prices are going up, and then expect as the harvest season winds down, so yung presyo ng bigas ay talagang tataas yan. So ito na yung indirect effects of inflation. Hindi na so, and this will affect the poor disproportionately. And in fact, I saw this in the data that was released yesterday.
Yeah, sa data ng PSA, the bottom 30% of households are yung halos straight line yung pagtaas nila ng inflation para sa kanila. So they feel the effects of inflation much more than us. But so you're okay with realigning some items in the budget. Where do you see that we could take the money from?
Well, I think in this emergency, we can afford to kind of let go some of the important big-ticket infrastructure projects. Hindi siya kasing urgent right now. So I would focus on that. Even yung mga public works at the local level, siguro wag muna. I-prioritize muna natin itong subsidies. And I think one of the better solutions I've heard out there would be service contracting, which what the Manila government is going to do. So essentially, aarkilahin mo itong mga jeepney drivers, yung kanilang yung routes nila, i-subsidize mo. So you're hitting two birds with a stone kasi you provide public transportation, pero at the same time, you support the livelihood of our PUV drivers. So I think that needs to be scaled up nationwide.
Yes, sir. Well, it begins on April 15. Sabi ng LTFRB, they begin that service contracting nationwide April 15, although we don't have that much detail yet. Although ang sabi ni Obet Martin the other day, inunahan kasi ni Obet Martin ng pasang masa the other day. Ang sabi niya nung Monday, was that their agreement daw with LTFRB, bibigyan sila ng pera ng gobyerno to keep on flying their routes. At the same time, they will still collect fares from the passengers. So, may dalawang revenue stream sila.
Yeah. Kasi dapat din natin tanungin, bakit nga ba pinapasan nitong mga drivers yung losses? Kasi one way to remedy this would be, taasan yung pamasahe. Pero of course, that will cripple public transportation. Jeepneys are very crucial mode of transportation. So I guess yung best route talaga is to subsidize the routes through service contracting.
Although, sir,
Tsaka lesser ang leakages. Dahil sa kasalukuyan kasi, kahit marami kang gagawin ng mga ayuda, sabi mo nga, JC, maraming leakages. At lalo na ngayon, na wala namang nahuhuling big fish after nitong massive, unprecedented corruption scandal, parang it will be more of the same. It will be more of the same. So magtatapong ka pa rin ng pera.
And I think yung Pantawid Pasada as well, itong mga vouchers that you can present at the gas stations, I think it needs to be beefed up din.
Pero 'di ba, pag binawasan mo rin ang infrastructure spending, ay makakadagdag yan sa pag-slow down ng ating economy. Dahil yung second biggest variable sa ating economy ay government spending.
Public works spending.
So, pag binawasan mo yan, meron ka rin tatamaan. No?
Although, na-realize ko din from last year na baka yung relatively decent economic growth na nararanasan natin in the past years ay dahil pala sa corruption. So in other words, sa papel, okay, gumastos tayo ng bilyong-bilyong piso, pero hindi naman talaga siya nag-translate into actual projects. Pero nag-reflect siya sa GDP growth. So I would say, and in fact, wake-up call yun sa akin, na parang nung natanggal yung government spending, biglang bumagal yung ekonomiya natin. So in other words, economic growth in the Philippines is being propped up by corruption, I'm afraid to say. So in other words, mahina na, parang illusory yung growth that we have been experiencing. It's much higher than what is actually out there.
May numbers
So,
crunching
yeah.
ka ba, JC? Gaano kalaki yan na yung growth natin ay funded by corruption? Meron ba kayong pwedeng...
Ongoing paper ko yan. Balitaan ko kayo pag may resulta na.
I'm so scared to see the numbers because as what this flood control scandal has exposed, napakalaking part ng malaki ang nakuha sa atin na nakaw. Coming back to the budget though, JC, talk us through unprogrammed appropriations. I know the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments on it this week about the constitutionality of it. Could that factor into this crisis?
Well, for 2026, Reg, actually mababa na yung unprogrammed appropriations precisely because of the intense public scrutiny that it has invited. So I don't think that they can fund much from the unprogrammed appropriations these days. Pero one of the findings as well that we got from the most recent budget cycle is that they have shifted away from hard pork projects, yung mga roads and bridges, going to soft pork projects. And this is something that can be used for ayuda in this crisis. Specifically, yung LGSF, so Local Government Support Fund. Kaya nga, di ba, pinulong ni Pangulong Marcos yun sila Mayor Lenny, sila Mayor Vico earlier this year. Kasi parang malaking pondo, billions and billions of funds that can be downloaded to the local governments precisely through the Local Government Support Fund. So I would argue that this is a very viable source of funding. In other words, pwedeng dito kunin yung ayuda for this crisis. So I think LGUs should be tapping the LGSF.
Soft pork. Ngayon ko lang narinig yan. I've not heard that term.
Yung financial
It sounds so
assistance,
innocuous for
guarantee
what it
letters.
is.
Yeah.
That's what
oo.
soft
Compared
pork
to
is.
public works like bridges and roads. Yeah.
soft pork. Matagal na yung soft pork. Pakulan mo na may
Ay, di ko alam Sorry Ang alam ko lang pork is pork. Yeah. I didn't know there was hard pork and soft pork. But soft pork kasi sounds so delicious. So, hindi ko na-reconcile.
Nakakaguto.
Lalo na kung adobo sa bawang, tsaka sa patis.
Ako yan na tayo.
Yeah.
Sir, sorry. Balikan ko lang yung sa excise taxes eh. So, if we assume nga na nakalahati lamang ang inaprubahan ng Pangulo, kasi you were pointing out kanina, you're looking at diminishing benefits as far as suspending excise taxes are concerned. Kasi lumalaki na lumalaki yung presyo, hindi naman lumalaki yung ano. I mean, 6 pesos pa rin yung mababawas for diesel and 10 pesos for gas. So, you look at diminishing benefits and at the same time also diminished revenues dahil nga kalahati na lang makokolekta mo eh. So how does that look to you in the long run? This compromise of sorts.
Well, of course, I think something has to give. Kaya nga umabot tayo sa half na lang. Sige, ayaw natin ng full exemption. So sige, gawin nating half. But I think the concerns of the economic managers are warranted in the sense na, sige, expect ba natin yung Kongreso na magpapas ng law introducing a new tax during this crisis? So, if the possibility of new taxes is zero, and then binabawasan pa natin yung revenue, ibig sabihin lang nun, uutang pa tayo. So, so pwede namang gumastos, sige, gastosan natin lahat. Pero sige, bawasan din natin yung revenue. Pero ibig sabihin, wag tayong magrereklamo kung yung utang natin ay talagang magi-skyrocket din. So again, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Utang tayo, pero pwede naman, hindi naman tayo magbayad eh. Pwede namang future generations. So let's kick the can down the road. Just like what the Marcos Sr. Dictatorship did, di ba? Yung mga utang nila nung 70s, 80s, nabayaran lang 2018 or thereabouts. So I think that's the cost. So in other words, sige, bawasan natin to 50%, pero either us, we will pay for that, or the future generations. Ganun lang naman yun.
Pero yan ang problema, JC, sa HAP eh. Parang pag-ibig yan eh. Hindi pwedeng half-hearted. Pag half-hearted ang pag-ibig, broken-hearted yun.
I don't know how to react to that.
Okay ba? Okay ba?
Hindi na economics
Okay ba
yun, wala akong makomment.
Okay ba na ending yun?
Sige, doon na natin tapusin. Baka sa papauwi ito eh. Okay. Maraming salamat for joining us this afternoon. For joining Historicon, JC Punong Bayan po of the UP School of Economics. Thank you, sir.
Salamat,
Thank you,
JC.
thank you.
Regards kay Walden ulit.
So, nung galing hugot na
Ikaw
yun.
talaga. Siningit mo pa yun. Okay.
Okay.
And
Ikaw
gonna
ba,
end
Red,
before you say
sangayon ka ba
something
sa
else.
half-hearted na pag-ibig?
No.
Oh, di ba? Walang half-half.
Whether pag-ibig o taxes, wag ang half-hearted.
Or excise tax.
Quote of the day, do not be half-hearted, whether it's tax or love.
Half-hearted is broken-hearted.
Oh my gosh. Kung ano na pinagsabihin nyo, just end the show already.
Goodbye na tayo. Thank you for joining Starcon today, and see you tomorrow. Our co-host, Regina Lay, our principal Regina Lay, and our resident Sutil, Ral Llamas.
Oh, broken-hearted.
No, broken-hearted daw siya. Just again tomorrow, 4 p.m.
Oh
for
my
Storycon. I'm Adling Kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.